Hello, my name's James Piecowye. Welcome to PODAHOLIKS and TechTalk with Andrew Thomas from Nexa. That's digitalnexa.com, which means for the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about all that is new and important in the world of tech. And Andrew is looking at me over Zoom today with the Millennium Falcon in his background. Nothing better than that, Chewie, Han Solo.
That's it. I thought you were calling me Chewie then.
I did have to take a second look.
That's it. Yeah. We straight off with the tech talk side of things. If you haven't already, on Alexa, just say to Alexa, "May the Fourth be with you." And obviously, because it was May the 4th at Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
She goes off and says, "Although I'm not a Jedi, I have taught in the ways of the Padawan." It was pretty cool. And then you can ask a whole lot of trivia around Star Wars. You can ask about, what's your favorite Star Wars character? It's cool. It's really, it's fun kind of having those conversations with Alexa,
I mean, it is really a phenomenon, isn't it? The whole Star Wars sort of franchise and how it's changed and grown and just really taken on. We talk about this every year, how a new generation of children sort of buy into it. And when you look at the stories and look back at them, they are just really simple stories, but they just work. They just absolutely work.
Yeah, as you said, I think it's a whole new generation now that have been exposed to Star Wars and really all of the kind of love that it gives. I mean, they just finished off the Clone Wars this last week as well. So if you're a real kind of geek, you've got into that side of things. But it's nice. I just wanted to put up a bit of a tribute. So I wanted to try and be in the Millennium Falcon cockpit as it were.
Hey, I'm looking forward to the next installment of The Mandalorian because there's actually that whole Padawan character is going to be in there, which I think is really cool.
It's going to be very cool. And there's a lot, and they've just announced that there's going to be a new movie and another series. So they've just they're saying there's a new Star Wars movie. I don't know if you read that.
Is that whole other series though that they're talking about? Is that the Obi-Wan one that's going to come out as well? Or is that the movie?
It's a different one.
Okay.
There's another series that's been signed off. So you think there's so many offshoot stories associated to the franchise, and there's a lot of comic books that have been written all over the years. So yeah, it's cool. I think I was actually this is not in the notes, but it's something that I watched very late last night. And there's somebody that I watch. She's a woman, the Pioneer Woman. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Food Network. She's a phenomenal kind of cook. Yeah. So she does real kind of home comfort, and her new series started last week, and it's called Pioneer Woman from Home, and it's amazing. The series was being filmed on iPhones, so it's her kids that are doing the filming with a gimbal and an iPhone, then a tripod, and so you're talking about TVC production value that went in and was broadcast on the Food Network. Yeah. I was blown away, and the feel and the vibe it gave was so personable. Yeah. That my wife and I were saying we preferred it. Yeah. Because you felt like you were really there. So just from a tech perspective, I mean, imagine that. Imagine that we're now in an age where you can grab your iPhone and you can record a TV show. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's editing and But yeah, I was blown away by that.
I'm pretty sure that Jamie Oliver is doing the same stuff on Channel 4 because his wife is doing the editing. Home. Yeah, he's doing it from home. They're shooting it on mobile phones. They're doing the quick edit. They've obviously figured out, okay, you need taking a look at the food, face on. He does his thing where he's sitting behind the counter. He obviously loves the camera. The camera loves him. He's been doing it for a while, so he knows how to work it, but they're just doing it from home. And I'm thinking, in my mind, it's kind of rejigging the whole. I mean, it jigging the way we produce content and making it really important to understand. Okay, do I have that gimbal? Do I have a tripod? Do I have a decent microphone? Do I know how to do some basic editing? And if I'm the folks who run a television studio, I want to be making very specific kind of content, but this type of content now, this home-based content, it lends itself to the technology in our pockets. And I'd be terrified if I'm those guys because you and I can produce pretty darn authentic and very, I think the word is authentic content that people are going to love, that is easily going to be able to, that I can put up onto YouTube or I can put up onto Insta. And those guys who are running a TV studio, they can't get their minds out of the fact that they need to have 25 people running a whole show and it needs to go up on a very specific format. So I think they must be terrified.
Yeah, I think everything's been affected and everything's changing. But I mean, what I'm quite kind of interested by is actually the amount of kind of things that I'm trying for the first time.
I mean, like what? What are you trying?
Myself and Amit, for example, we're starting a series next week called the Digital Growth Show. So we spent the best part of kind of 2-3 hours trying to work out how we would film it on Zoom to get the two videos, and it was because it's not a natural setting. Then you're back in the forum and you're trying to check that. Then we were doing, kind of blooper reels and recording, and then we put something together that essentially we'd filmed for 45 minutes and we only needed about 3 minutes of content. Yeah. So I found myself on iMovie, which I've never used before.
Okay.
I think I've used once for something, but yeah, I spent, it was quite comical because I spent the best part of an hour trying to chop up these 3 edits. I thought what was a pretty good job, and then handed off to our guy. And we were joking. I just said, man, that's just taken me an hour to do that.
Yeah.
But it was still fun. Much like building a website or learning something different, I think, at the moment, because well, you said a couple of weeks ago, obviously at the moment we're kind of fully involved in tech and we're fully involved and we're on here more. And it's important to kind of get, a rest from these things. But I'm finding my rest is actually learning something new, but different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So something that I would never do in my ordinary daily life, I'm kind of hooking onto that and then exploring that. I even, last week when you and I were working on the website, it was using the imaging tools to, crudely manipulate some images. But I'm finding that quite fun, actually. So exploring new tech, in the sense that I'm exploring new software and understanding, for example, what this thing can do, what my Mac can do, because for years it's been undervalued in what it can do, I'd say. Right. Never really used the camera much before, obviously this. Never looked at video editing, never looked at it was basically a browser. I mean, I could have been sitting on a Chromebook.
Might as well have been, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's interesting how I'm getting more out of my tech. What do you think? You kind of...
Yeah, you know what?
Is there anything...
Yeah, I have actually... I've never been the YouTube video lessons guy. And... So you know that we're on Zoom right now. We're filming. I use my son's room as my office / studio because he's not here. Well, he had an acoustic guitar sitting over in the corner, fully tuned, in good shape, and I said to him, I gotta start maybe strumming away. We can hook up on the internet and you can have a chat with me. And he said, Dad, just go on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and pick an early starter lesson. I said, well, which one? He goes, just pick anyone. So I went through a few of them until I found one that was quirky and fun enough that I'd like to listen. And I literally I'm on lesson 2. I'm on lesson 2. And it was interesting because the guy keeps saying, take a month. He said, look, he says, don't dive out of this. I'm going to start. He says, here's the basic notes, but I'm going to start you just on a couple of chords and finger position, and all I want you to do is manipulate those. And he said, just do 5 minutes a day, do whatever. And I watched the video. I watched it a few times trying to get the fingers right. Watched another one just to play around with some tips. And I'm on the second lesson, and it's funny because I'll put this guy on. He's quirky. He's fun. He gives the thing, and I've never ever before been that guy. I mean, okay, I've done a few of those lessons for how to use Premiere or something, but never a full on kind of outside of the tech world lesson. And I'm loving it. And it's funny because I finally get it. And everyone I keep saying, like, lots of people want to play guitar. And And he said, there are people who play guitar. Obviously, they sell them everywhere. But a lot of people give up early because of it hurts your fingers if you play it right, and it takes some muscle memory. And one guy was honest. He said, look, it's going to hurt your hand. He said, for sure, trying to get your hand in the right position, it's going to ache for a while. He said, the people who are good at it, watch Carlos Santana and others, and those guys have been playing for 30 years. So, of course, they're used to it, and they found their way to cheat and whatever. And so I'm doing it, and I'm following these YouTube videos, and it's hilarious because I was on, as I said, did the second lesson, and I watched it, and then it turned it back on because I wanted to fine tune on something so I could go back, and I was just watching his fingers to see, but how are you physically getting them on there? And I could see see what he's saying. It's frustrating because my fingers couldn't fit, and I got to zoom in and still figure out, well, how is he actually making this happen? But the other side to it is great appreciation for when my son was here. And he would just be doing some schoolwork, and then he'd be strumming, and then he'd be doing some schoolwork and strumming. I'd go, what the heck is he doing? And now I realize, because you play for 4 or 5 minutes, then you go back to what you're doing, then you come back because you're trying to master it and do it again. And And so that and the other thing that we've been doing around the house is a lot of cooking things. So we've really said, okay, we want to try some new thing every week that's totally outside of our wheelhouse. And we've been doing that too. So we've just been playing around and having some fun and doing things that are a little different. And then as I told you about, the last thing that I'm doing is, so we do a lot of audio, we do a lot of podcasting, obviously, and we're pretty efficient at it, and we're great at having the discussion. And I've been thinking for a good year, you've been talking audiobooks, and I've been thinking about, you know what, I've got these books that I've kind of worked on my mind, and I need to start writing them, and I've sketched some ideas down. Then I thought, you know what, I want to take the audio. Why not just go direct to audiobook and do the written version later, but not just do the audio read, do the full radio drama, drama thing, but in short little bites. And so I thought, okay, how am I going to do that? And so it's that for me has been a little bit of a learning curve on doing the Foley work and getting the sound effects and putting them in and getting the levels. So So because it's not just the read and the thing, and it obviously the read, but it's
the scene set.
Everything's happening with the setting of the scene, and it's geared totally towards sound. So so it's I mean
the podcast Serial was really one of the big ones that, if you remember, that kicked off the whole wave of increase in podcasting in the States. Aside from, your kind of Joe Rogans, there was, if you remember Serial, did you ever listen to it?
Yeah.
That was the one that really, I think, took off, right? As far as people listening. So, I was super buzzed, actually, when you mentioned that in the week, that, you're working on this, like almost, as you said, old kind of fashioned, radio drama, where you tune in each week to kind of find out what's happened to the characters. I'm buzzed about that. So I'm excited about it.
And it's funny, just as I unleashed that one on you, I've been listening to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I listen to, my stable set of podcasts from them, which tend to be their radio shows that they've reformatted, although there are some that are purely not. And they've got a once a month program where they've got theater companies that have come together, and they're doing the full Foley stuff, and they're doing theater for the ear. But so they've rejigged. Some of them are brand new plays, some of them are older things, but they've put them all together purely for a podcast, and they do one a month. And I'm thinking, this is really cool. Like, this is, I think we're back. It's almost like we've taken a full step backwards moving forward through technology. Because as we always said, I love having the video, and I know that we talk about this all the time, but you can't listen to video when you're driving. You can't listen to video all the time or watch video all the time. And I always have this argument with some of my colleagues, because I'll say, we're in video and we're doing video. And I say, but if you do video and you think about it, a good third of what you're doing is set design and dressing a set so that people see everything, and then they don't have to put it in. And all the facial expressions and all that stuff that don't work for the ear. So you've got to explain it. And they kind of, it's a constant back and forth, because obviously video's sexy, but audio is immediate. Yeah. Oh man. So this is cool. This is cool though, man. I mean, that's really neat so you figured it out though, how you guys are going to do your show. Yeah. There's a show that's going up next week. So the format is very different, I'd say. So it's not something that we've done before. It's more conversational around topics of interest. So I think this it should be good. There should be enough for kind of everyone. We'll start firing out the marketing of it, and probably by today. So nice. I think it'd be interesting to see that up and living and having its own life, as it were. So yeah, super excited about that. Where are we going to find that? Head over to the next webpage, and it'll all be there.
Yeah, we're gonna host it. It's going to be hosted through Zoom. Okay. We're looking at the moment at how we can embed it in. Again, a lot of these things are new. So previously, you wouldn't think about embedding a show in a web page. But we're getting the guys, the team already looking at how they can do that. Is it possible? Is there a hack? Is there a workaround? Because a lot of these things at the moment, I mean, Zoom platform has dramatically changed and updated itself since the last 2 months, really, and moved away from a communication web conferencing tool to something much more. So, as that starts to peak and they start to integrate with more apps, their ecosystem starts to grow. So, it just goes from there. So it's just working it out. And a lot of the time, what's interesting is you said, you're going on YouTube to learn something. Because Zoom is relatively new, there's not a lot of that forum. There's not a lot of YouTube. I mean, new in the consumer sense. Right, so more people active on the platform that want to do different things with it. Obviously, when you're talking about other platforms, there's forums and look, we know, when we've got a problem with our Mac. I mean, I had an interesting problem with my Mac 2 weeks ago where the charge. Oh,
yeah. You were talking about that.
Yeah.
Did you get it fixed? It just fixed itself. Maybe there was dust in there or something. Honestly, it could have been there was dust or something.
I cleaned it out, but it didn't make any difference. And then just one day I came in and took the plug out, and it went down and said no 1%. So now it's sitting up there and it's charging and it seems to be behaving. So I'm not. Perhaps I shouldn't talk about it.
Well, another place to check is on the inside of that little USB-C. And I'm sure that junk gets stuck in there, and you almost want to take a little toothpick or something.
Yeah, they do that with these phones as well. They say that when it's in your pocket, you go, look at that, I can make the phone disappear.
It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool. I like that. The amount of lint. And
men are the worst. The guys at the Apple store said that. So that's the number one thing for men. Yeah. So
that's it. Yeah, I guess it's like our belly buttons, right? The Apple socket is like our belly button. Yeah.
Which is the ultimate segue, and not the belly button and not the socket, but the using our tools and how you found a great. We got to wear masks more often now. Not only here, North America and around. Now North America, I'm just a little bit miffed at some of the folks back in North America who just aren't taking this seriously and social distancing seriously. And it's going to backfire on some of these folks. They just don't get it. Yeah. But if you are following through on that, you got two problems. One, make sure, hopefully, if you're wearing gloves, which some people do, and the jury's still out on do you need gloves. But the masks become a big problem if you're trying to unlock your phone, if you're using facial recognition, which most people do. And you found a quick fix.
Yeah, it looks like they're Apple have realized that this is an issue. And obviously, for those of you know, familiar with the Apple, they've removed the fingerprints. It's facial recognition only, but there's also a passcode. So it is frustrating. I've found that, at the moment, for example, shopping. So if I'm going shopping and I want to check the list, I've actually gone old school to a shopping list now. Yeah. Where it's written on a bit of paper, because the amount of times I kept opening the phone and trying to look at the phone and more so, I'd say that I just haven't used the phone in the car now. So whereas previously, obviously, you can look and you can see who's calling. Now I just don't even bother looking at it because it just comes up the passcode. So yeah, they've done a patch, or adding an alternative appearance, right? So they're working on a patch at the moment. But obviously what you can do is you can add in an alternative with you wearing a mask. So I'm not sure if it's available on. I'm not sure if it's available on Android. Is it available on Android or?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, well, you can have multiple views. I'd have to check that out. You know what? I really have to look. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're saying obviously this is something that you can do, or alternatively, you can just unlock your phone using your passcode.
Yeah.
So instead of it trying 4 or 5 times with you, so to go back a couple of steps, Apple are trying to do an update at the moment that will allow you to unlock the phone with the face, because actually it's your T-zone.
Yeah.
That's what they.
So that your eyes and down the bridge of your nose.
Exactly. That's the facial recognition part. So they're working on updating that, but obviously there's some security concerns associated to it. So in the meantime, people are saying you can add an alternative Face ID, but then ultimately, if all else fails, you can just click to. There's a slide where you can just say passcode, and then obviously you can open your passcode. But the only problem with that, I guess, is that I'm not using this all day. Yeah. So I guess it's just when you go out to switch over to that setting, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a first world issue, though. Again, right? Because
totally. Yeah. I mean, this whole thing is pretty. Well, I mean, that's a nice segue, actually. I mean, into the next thing that we kind of pulled up from first world to third world issue, right?
Yeah.
With this new free web browsing. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this.
I did.
Facebook are launching this new app called Discover. And I still don't understand how it works. I've read the article several times. I mean, do you get it or not?
Well, I think I get it. And the issue is that we're talking a lot about some of these African countries and places.
Yeah, South America. Yeah.
And South America. They've even talked to India, and nearest I can, if you think about it from a smartphone, the kind that we're using, there's no need for this. But when you start looking at some of these South American areas and around, they're not using smartphones. So they're using more text-based phones and hacks that will allow smartphone features. So all this is doing is making it easier for folks using those phones that aren't smartphones to get onto websites to get the actual data that they need to get and to get the information that otherwise isn't available to them because they need to get online and they need to be using a different type of device. So this just suddenly makes it really easy for them to use the device that they have, which has better battery life, which is not as smart, but then doesn't also give you the content that you might be getting from other apps. So they're creating an app that's going to, first of all, give them free access. So that's kind of cool. And it's going to do it in a text format. And I thought, okay, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of individuals out there that don't have connectivity. This is part of Facebook's plan to offer. I mean, obviously, Elon Musk is working on it as well, as far as Starlink and Facebook are doing it with the balloons and low level, where to provide internet services globally. And they're saying that this is going to kind of give you free access to certain basic web information. So to try and get the world connected, I think, I think that's it. You kind of come, joking aside, you come from a place of privilege here.
Absolutely.
So the fact that we can effectively carry on with our lives because we've got high-end connectivity, in many parts of the world, it's just not practical.
Yeah.
You say, you got to work from home. Well, I can't work from home. I don't have any internet. The only internet I have is in the office. Yeah. I mean, look, I think if you go back we don't have to go back that far. Go back 10 years ago, and the connectivity in the house was very slow compared to the connectivity in the office.
Horrible. I had
because
horrible.
we weren't streaming. I mean, we go way back, and we talk about Real Play. You remember Real Play?
Yes.
That's those guys obviously kind of revolutionized that optimized stream as far as encryption and compression. If you don't watch Silicon Valley, actually, the comedy series, you should, because it's all around that. But it's. I think this is obviously, you kind of sometimes forget that the basic thing that we do here is not available elsewhere.
Yeah.
So and in those places, which is interesting, it may be something to think about for people that are looking for opportunity. The fact is, there's just more people in that part of the world. You know, as far as maths. So, I mean, yeah, it's great to work on some of these new apps and some of these new ideas on the back of where we find ourselves. But I think that some of the real kind of gold or real gems could be found in some of these third world countries that have connectivity issues, that, still want to be connected, but don't want to rely on high bandwidth, high, video streaming. So, yeah, for sure. It's,
I think it's really interesting, and I'd actually forgotten about, when I was looking at this, I'd forgotten about the balloons that Facebook was experimenting with to put them up to sort of beam connectivity around villages and towns, and obviously still working really hard on that. And I thought, man, that's it. What a great idea that is still going. And then of course Elon Musk's got all his stuff that he's working on. And then Amazon had some projects that they were doing. Google's always playing around with stuff as well. I mean, it's an interesting time, and suddenly we've got these opportunities that are being presented because people need information about what's going on around them now. So it's like you said, I also think that a lot of times when we think about opportunity, we think about the user, and obviously there's a cost associated with things. And there's some capitalist mentality out there that, how are we going to make a small return or any return off this investment? And I think, again, getting those patrons involved and getting people to say, hey, you know what? This is worth it to us. If I'm a Sainsbury or a government organization or a university or a school or someone saying, what's the investment we can put into this, and how is this going to help with information transfer, information pickup down the road? And I think in some ways it almost creates a long-term investment, which is really hard, as you know, as someone who works in business. What's your turnaround? A year, 6 months, 3 months. Those are the timelines that you typically work at. And some of these things, when we talk about internet uptake and creating more democratic content access, we're looking at 5 years, 10 years down the road to see the return on what return did I get from making people able to access this information. And that's a tough one. It's tough to play with.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think it's excuse me, sorry. Yeah, it is. It's a challenge, isn't it? Trying to kind of understand and work through these. I think that's part of the issue. But yeah, I mean, I think as we we've said this before. I mean, tech, obviously, ultimately, our Tech Talk show is around tech, and we tend to focus on a lot of the new tech, shiny new tech, high end. But tech can be, very low tech, but still be revolutionary at the same time.
Yeah, I think we forget that. It's always that new, and it's funny because I see the new laptops coming out, and I see that Microsoft has got their new laptop and their new Surface is out, and I'm looking at that, and I've been to the grocery store, I've been to Carrefour, and I've done some grocery shopping, and I've walked by the computers really quickly, wondering who's buying, and that was kind of the thing we kind of miss it. There's a whole piece of the social interaction that's now missing, where you go out and buy a new computer or a new phone or a new tablet or that new thing, a new pointer or whatever. You don't see the folks in the office with it anymore. Like, I don't know who's bought a new phone in the last 2 months, and it's weird. Now I'm wondering who is buying the stuff.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, some of the earnings associated to some of these handset manufacturers. Because similarly, I think potentially, I mean, you may get people looking at buying I'd say a new phone because you're using it for different things.
Yeah.
Like we said at the top of the show, the fact is that Pioneer Woman is filming a whole TV series. Jamie Oliver is filming a whole TV series off of their phone.
Yeah.
So if people see this, they may think, well, hold on a minute. Actually, yeah, it warrants an investment of a better quality phone because I'm zooming, I'm doing editing, I'm perhaps, on the fly. So I think it would be interesting to see how that shapes up. How kind of people then say, well, yeah, okay, this does make sense. Like I'll do, I'll upgrade my handset because I want to do this and this. Yeah, for sure.
There's this new phone that I put into the notes, and it's an Android phone, and it's the TerraCube is what it's called, and it was a Kickstarter phone. And this thing is so it's an Android phone. And it basically has decent enough specs across the board, 6.2 inch screen, runs Android 9, nice, huge battery. And these guys are selling it, and, Gorilla Glass screen, it all works. These guys are selling this thing, and they're saying, look, this phone is coming in at, first of all, they say... Yeah,
$269, right?
$269, and they're saying this phone they figure it's got a 4-year lifespan that you won't need to replace it for 4 years. And what I loved about it was flat rate $39 repairs. So you need a new screen, you got a problem with it on the inside, $39. That's how much they're charging to fix it. And I'm thinking that's pretty good. It's like
as you said, I think there's some serious. Some seriously good value there, isn't there?
Well, it's got a 4-year warranty, Andrew. 4-year warranty. I'm thinking.
I find it difficult to believe that it will take still be working in 4 years' time. I guess. I think I find that difficult to believe. That for me feels a bit like I don't know, but yeah, it's. It feels as though I don't know. I guess it's tough, isn't it? Because what do people want in a phone now?
Yeah.
Again, I think it's going to be different. Some people, like we just said, are going to be using their phone for a lot more, so they may want to go for a higher spec than they did before. Whereas other people just may actually be spending more time on their screen, so they might want to look at upgrading their Mac or upgrading their. Mac have just dropped $1,000. Their entry-level MacBook, right? That's becoming more affordable because I think they're starting to see the gap, shorten between the premium offering of Chromebooks and styling and design, and in addition to MacBook. But I don't know. Again, but it just goes back to what do you want it for?
Well, that's it.
If you're on a construction site. Your phone gets knocked around, banged around. Or perhaps it's for a younger kid. You want something because the amount of times you see on groups, my iPhone screen is smashed.
Yeah,
and you're paying close to $260 for a new screen.
Yeah, forget it.
So at least you've got some understanding of how much something's going to cost you, I guess, right?
Well, and I think it all comes back to when we start looking at phones. You nailed it. What are you going to use it for? Okay, I'm going to use it for phone calls. I'm going to use it for a bit of surfing. I'm going to watch some YouTube. We all know that we're taking video and we're taking photos, so I need to have a good camera, and it needs to be easy to navigate through. But that's the basic stuff. Maybe you're going to do a little bit of translation on a dictionary thing, but really, what else are you using it for? So for the average person, you need the average phone. For a few people, the phone, and I've seen this with some of the yoga stuff I'm doing, people are using their phone as their primary device. I'm going, okay, well, that phone needs to have higher speed, and it needs to be able, it needs to have a bigger CPU so that it can do more. But most people, like I'm thinking myself, my phone, I need it for the camera and audio. That's it. And so it's funny when you're saying how long a phone lasts. One of the phones I use, I'm still using a Sony Xperia that I use for the camera. I don't use it for anything else. I only use it for the video. And that's all I use it for. And could I use it as a phone? Absolutely. It works great. But I just like that feature on it. So it has, it's a little bit dated. It's running an earlier operating system, which I don't update, but it works really well for that. So if I was, if that was my sole goal, I could just use that phone easily and get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's where I think this phone might fit into play if you're just looking at it as a basic device. It's almost like that burner phone. It's like, okay, I can afford this, and it's got a great warranty, and it's got a big battery, and it's got a great screen, and away we go.
Exactly.
So it's,
time to play, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there's one other thing that you threw in here: Spotify going crazy. Or Shopify, sorry, not Spotify, although Spotify is Shopify is going crazy. And I think there was something in the Canadian newspapers talking about Shopify being valued more than one of the banks in Canada at this point. Like the leading bank, in Canada, it is the most valuable company on the stock exchange right now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there was it's interesting. There's a guy, I actually saw his presentation, I think, going back 4 years. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and he's head of product development at Shopify. And they were saying, I mean, he tweeted out a whole load of interesting, and there was a document, about a 16-page document, if you want to read through it, as far as what's happened in the last 6 weeks on Shopify. But a really interesting one that stood out for me was 67% increase on new stores.
Which is amazing.
Which is crazy. I mean, if you and I think it'd be interesting to know, for example, a breakdown of businesses that have kind of had to make that transition online, or just people that are interested to setting up their own store. I mean, look, it's getting easier in this part of the world, but there's still a significant entry cost. Just because here, you need a license, you need an office, you need all of this, right? So I think if you and I are sitting now in our home countries, we could jump on Shopify. There's a 14-day trial. You could probably get a shop up in about 2 hours, right? Yeah. And start trading. Yeah. I mean, it's that straightforward. Now, obviously, I think some of the things that people don't think about is logistically. How do I get my products? How do I set up my deliveries? How do I do returns? But I think there's definitely, people that are thinking and saying and doing, well, hold on a minute. I mean, I'm buying things online. That must mean other people are buying things online. Why don't I do this? So I think and obviously, when we're in North America and the States and UK, you've got other platforms. So it's really easy to fire up a Wix or a Squarespace or a WooCommerce or, one of these other ones, but Shopify definitely seems to be leading the way, just because it's real plug and play. There's so many apps that are built for it. It's its own ecosystem. So yeah, it's I was blown away by this. So it was just thought we'd share it.
The other side with Shopify is trust, and because people have heard, how often you've heard of Shopify? Oh yeah, I've heard of Shopify. Oh, I'm on Shopify. Oh yeah, I've heard of Shopify. Person can't remember what they've heard, where they've heard it, but they know the name. They say, well, if you're on Shopify, it's got to be good. I'm going to head over to your store and check it out. And I think that really works. And they've been in the game for a long time. Like I remember when Shopify first started, and people were going, really, who's going to use that? And how are they going to survive the Amazon? And how are they going to do this? And they just kept plugging away and say, look, we've got a goal. This is we're not Amazon. We've got a total different ecosystem, and we're aiming at a different area. And they've just done it. And timing, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you look even at the share price of Shopify, it's at a record high.
Can you imagine?
Just because obviously people are looking to kickstart something, right? Yeah. So I think we'll see it. Look, to be fair, it's easy to open up a store. Yeah. It's not easy to trade, right? Yeah. Yeah. So there is a big difference. Like anything in this world, it takes hard work. So if you fire up a blog, I don't know. Like, do you carry on writing? It's just But
yeah. Well, that's like podcasting, right? That's like podcasting. Anyone can do a podcast. Yeah. But can you sustain it?
100%. Yeah. I mean, you need someone like yourself to make sure that you keep everyone in line and keep us trucking along. But
I'm pretty amazed actually at the group of us here at Podaholiks, because we all just do it. You know what I mean? And it's almost like there's a guilt if we usually record on a certain day. We didn't. And you're like, man, can we try on another day? And someone said to me, well, what's in it for you guys? I said, we just love doing this stuff. Like it's just part of what we do. And it feeds into, I hope that this feeds back into a little bit of what you do at Nexa. And I hope that it feeds back into We Will Fix It and PowerWorks and Jenna just
Possibly.
like, yeah. So, but if not, it's, we just love doing it. And that's a weird thing. That's a really weird thing. Anyway.
That was good. We're connected. Cool.
Hey, we got to wrap this podcast because you've got places to go. I've got to meet up with Dr. Jenna, and away we go. Andrew, as always, it has been a blast. This has been Tech Talk on Podaholics with Andrew Thomas from Nexa, digitalnexa.com. My name's James Piecowye. Podaholics with a K at gmail.com to get a hold of us. www.podaholicswithak.com is where you can find all of our shows and more. And of course, you're listening to us on some streaming platform. Rate us, give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, share the link. This is Podaholics.